Have you ever noticed how easy it is to become a secondary character in your own story? You wake up, look at your phone, and before you have even had a chance to ask yourself how you are feeling, you immediately jump into solving problems, managing obligations, or keeping the peace for everyone around you. You pour your energy into answering messages, soothing someone else's stressful morning, or double-checking details for a project so nobody else feels the strain. By midday, your focus is entirely scattered across 5 different people's needs, and that quiet voice inside you, the one asking for just a single moment of breathing room, gets quietly pushed to the very back of the line. It happens so subtly that you might not even realize you're doing it. You learn to live in a state of quiet reaction. You become an expert at anticipating what the people in your life need before they even ask for it. You adjust your tone, you bend your schedule, and you sacrifice your rest, convincing yourself that this is just what it means to be responsible, loving, or dependable. But if you stop and pay attention, you can feel the quiet toll it takes on your soul. There is a specific kind of heaviness that comes from constantly showing up for the world while abandoning yourself in the process. You carry the weight of everyone's expectations on your shoulders, walking softly so you don't disrupt anyone else's comfort. You tell yourself that once everything settles down, once everyone else is taken care of, once the calm finally arrives, then you will take time for yourself. But that moment never seems to come, does it? Because there is always another request, another small emergency, another expectation waiting to take your place. If you are navigating a period of personal shift, healing, or trying to rebuild your confidence from the ground up, there is a fundamental truth you need to hear today. Putting yourself first is not a selfish act. It is the prerequisite for a meaningful, sustainable life. You cannot build a peaceful life on a foundation of self-neglect. Every single time you ignore your own exhaustion to make someone else's day a little easier, you send a quiet message to your heart that your feelings don't matter as much as theirs do. Over time, that message becomes a belief. And that belief turns into a deep, aching disconnect from who you truly are. It is time to break that cycle. It is time to recognize that your energy, your time, and your mental peace are precious resources that deserve protection. You are not a vessel meant to be emptied for everyone else's convenience until there is nothing left of you. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say, "I need a moment." You are allowed to belong to yourself before you belong to anyone else. Before we dive into this journey together, take a quiet pause right now. Close your eyes for just 3 seconds. Take a deep breath and let go of the tension in your shoulders. Drop an affirmation in the comments below. I choose myself today. Let those words mark your line in the sand. Let them be a gentle, unwavering promise that from this moment forward, your peace matters just as much as anyone else's. You are step one. Everything changes after this. Think back to the last time you were completely exhausted, yet you still said yes to a request you secretly wanted to decline. Maybe a colleague asked you to take over a late afternoon task when your brain was already foggy, or a friend wanted to talk for hours on the phone while you were running on empty. You forced a warm smile, answered every call, and nodded along, all while a quiet resentment started building up in your chest. You told yourself you were just being helpful, that it was easier to say yes than to handle the uncomfortable silence of saying no. But deep down, you felt that familiar, heavy weight settling in your stomach, the realization that you had just traded your peace for someone else's comfort once again. When you make a habit of constant availability, you teach your mind that your comfort comes second to everyone else's convenience. You spend your vital energy soothing other people's anxieties while leaving your own completely unattended. You become the reliable shoulder, the instant responder, the person who always drops everything to help. On the outside, it looks like kindness, but on the inside, it feels like a slow, quiet erosion of your spirit. You start to feel like a phone running on 1% battery, constantly being asked to perform tasks without ever being plugged into a charger. The cost of this endless accommodation isn't just physical fatigue. It's the gradual loss of trust in your own boundaries. Every time you abandon your needs to shield someone else from a minor disappointment, you trade a piece of your inner calm. You begin to internalize the idea that your worth is tied to how useful you are to others. You start to fear that if you step back, if you take an hour to yourself, if you let a call go to voicemail, if you say, "I can't help with that today," the people in your life will think you are cold, selfish, or unloving. So you keep giving, hoping that someone will eventually notice how tired you are and offer you the rest you refuse to give yourself. But the hard truth is that people rarely step in to save you from a drain you allow. When you are always available, people get used to your availability. They don't see the mental math you do before saying yes, nor do they hear the sigh you swallow before answering the door. They simply see someone who can handle it. Over time, this dynamic creates a lonely kind of isolation. You can be surrounded by people who love you, yet feel completely unseen because no one actually knows the exhausted, overwhelmed version of you hiding behind the quick replies and helpful gestures. Reclaiming your focus starts with recognizing the hidden price tag on your yes. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying a quiet no to your rest, your hobbies, your peace, and your own healing. You don't have to be available to everyone at all times to be a good person. Your accessibility is not a measure of your heart. When you finally allow yourself to slow down and protect your time, you give your soul room to breathe. You start building a life where your presence is a conscious choice, not an automatic sacrifice. Many of us use constant productivity and helping others as a way to avoid looking inward. It feels safe to be the organizer, the problem solver, the dependable one who never collapses under pressure. You fill every hour managing family schedules, offering endless advice, organizing events, or over-preparing for every possible contingency in your group. You are the one who steps in before anyone even asks, taking on tasks that aren't yours, smoothing over conflicts before they start, and carrying the emotional weight of an entire room. On the surface, it looks like generosity, strength, and pure competence, but beneath it lies a deep-seated fear. If you stop managing everything around you, what will you have to sit with? Overfunctioning is often nothing more than a high-achieving form of self-defense. It is a protective shell we build around our own vulnerable hearts. As long as you are busy fixing someone else's broken situation, organizing someone else's chaotic day, or planning 3 steps ahead for everybody else, you don't have to look at the quiet pain living inside your own chest. You don't have to face the lingering sadness from your past, the anxiety about your future, or the hollow feeling that comes from living a life tailored to everyone except yourself. It is far easier to solve 10 problems for other people than to sit quietly in an empty room. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? What am I running from? When you make overfunctioning your identity, you create an invisible barrier between yourself and real rest. You tell yourself that you are just a natural caretaker, or that if you don't do it, no one else will. But if you are truly honest with yourself, taking a break feels terrifying. The moment you slow down, the noise of the outside world fades, and the silent reality of your own emotional exhaustion comes rushing in. So, you grab another project. You offer to help another friend. You keep your hands busy and your mind occupied because the busyness feels like safety. It acts as an armor, keeping your own untended grief, burnout, and unfulfilled desires at a comfortable distance. The tragedy of living behind this shield is that while it protects you from facing your inner self, it also cuts you off from true connection and genuine self-discovery. You become so consumed by running a perpetual rescue operation for everyone around you that you lose touch with your own preferences, your own boundaries, and your own dreams. You give everyone else the attention and compassion you desperately need yourself. But real healing cannot happen in the middle of a rush. Real growth cannot begin while you are constantly distracted by fixing things you were never meant to carry. To truly discover who you are, you have to be brave enough to put down the shield, let the dust settle, and finally, give yourself permission to just be. Turning your attention back toward your own growth requires a willingness to confront the parts of yourself you have neglected for years. When you finally decide to stop running, to stop focusing on every external demand, and to step back from being everybody's fix-it person, the initial silence can feel strange, heavy, or even deeply intimidating. You sit down with yourself, and suddenly the room feels too quiet. Without the constant hum of other people's needs filling your mind, you are left alone with your own thoughts, your own memories, and your own long-ignored emotions. You might suddenly feel the crushing weight of all those years spent pleasing others, the quiet sorrow for time lost, the exhaustion from always shape-shifting to fit in, or the subtle fear that if you stop being useful, people won't find a reason to value you anymore. It is a lonely threshold to cross, You begin to realize that while you know what everyone else around you likes, needs, and expects, you barely know the person looking back at you in the mirror. You have spent so much energy keeping up a pleasant facade for the world that your own internal world feels like an uncharted, unfamiliar territory. When we spend years adjusting to who everyone else needs us to be, turning back toward our own true face can feel daunting. We worry about what we will find if we dig beneath the surface. What if we discover that we are deeply unhappy with choices we made years ago? What if we find anger that we've swept under the rug for far too long? What if we realize that the life we built doesn't actually align with who we are becoming? This fear of looking inward is a universal human experience. As Carl Jung famously observed, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. When you really think about those words, you realize how profound they are. It sounds so simple to accept yourself, but in reality, it requires immense courage. Accepting yourself completely means acknowledging both your strengths and your deepest boundaries without an ounce of guilt. It means looking at your fatigue, your limits, your past mistakes, and your unmet goals with gentle compassion rather than quiet shame. It means admitting that you cannot carry everything, that you are allowed to have flaws, and that your worth is not dependent on your performance for others. Facing this unknown space inside yourself isn't about fixing yourself overnight. It's about making peace with the silence. It's about sitting with your sadness without immediately trying to cheer yourself up, and letting your frustration exist without burying it under a polite smile. It requires standing firmly in your own identity, even when it feels totally unfamiliar, awkward, or uncomfortable. When you allow yourself to stay in that quiet space, instead of running back to your old habits of pleasing people, something beautiful happens. The fear begins to soften. You start to realize that the unknown inside you isn't a dangerous place. It is simply a long-forgotten home. You begin to uncover your true preferences, your genuine passions, and the quiet strength that has been waiting patiently beneath your exhaustion all along. Accepting yourself isn't an ending. It is the moment your real life finally begins. Consider how much of your precious mental energy goes into managing how other people perceive you on a daily basis. Think about the quiet, invisible strain of living in a state of constant self-editing. You draft a simple text message 4 or 5 times, changing the punctuation and word choices, just to ensure it sounds warm and cheerful enough so no one misinterprets your tone or thinks you are upset with them. You hesitate to voice a preference about where to eat dinner, what movie to watch, or how you would genuinely like to spend your weekend afternoon, brushing it off with a polite, "I don't mind, whatever you want," simply because you don't want to cause the slightest friction or inconvenience. You replay conversations in your head hours, sometimes days, after they have ended, dissecting every word you spoke and every shift in their expression. You ask yourself over and over, did I say the wrong thing? Did I sound strange? Are they disappointed in me? You walk through your day on emotional tiptoes, constantly reading the energy of the room, measuring the tone of someone's voice, and looking for subtle signs of reassurance that everything between you is still okay. It is an exhausting way to exist. Living for approval means living on an emotional roller coaster, where your peace of mind is completely held hostage by how other people feel in any given moment. When someone is pleased with you, you feel relieved and safe. But the moment you sense even a hint of distance, coldness, or disagreement from another person, your foundation shakes and your anxiety spikes. You rush to fix it, to smooth things over, to appease them, often sacrificing your own truth in the process, just to restore a temporary sense of security. What we often fail to see is that approval seeking is a form of slow self-abandonment. Every time you tweak your personality, hide your true feelings, or minimize your own needs to gain someone else's acceptance, you are quietly telling yourself that their opinion of you matters far more than your opinion of yourself. You end up trading your authenticity for a superficial sense of harmony. You become a chameleon, constantly shifting your colors to match whatever environment you are in, until eventually you look in the mirror and realize you don't know who you actually are when nobody else is watching. The truth is, seeking universal approval is a race with no finish line. No matter how kind, accommodating, soft-spoken, or helpful you try to be, you will never be able to control how everyone views you. People filter you through their own moods, their own past hurts, their own projections, and their own unhealed spaces. You could spend your entire life twisting yourself into a shape that pleases someone else, only for them to change their expectations tomorrow. Reclaiming your energy means recognizing that you do not need permission to exist comfortably in your own choices. It means coming to terms with the reality that it is okay if someone doesn't like your boundaries. It is okay if someone misinterprets your silence. And it is okay if you aren't everyone's cup of tea. Your worth was never meant to be put up for a vote. Imagine what your life would feel like if you took all the heavy energy you spend trying to be liked and poured it back into liking yourself. Imagine the incredible relief of speaking your truth in a calm, clear voice without apologizing for having a boundary. When you stop adjusting your posture to make everyone else comfortable, you finally create space to stand upright in your own values. You realize that the only approval you truly need to live a grounded, peaceful, and honest life is your own. We have been conditioned by society to admire total self-sacrifice, as if running yourself completely into the ground is the ultimate proof of a good, noble heart. From a young age, we are taught that putting everyone else's comfort, happiness, and peace before our own is the highest virtue. We watch the people around us work until they break, give until they are empty, and wear their exhaustion like a badge of honor. So, we follow in their footsteps. We learn to ignore the sharp pain in our backs, the quiet gnaw in our stomachs, and the heavy mental fog that settles over our days. We swallow our own physical and emotional fatigue, convincing ourselves that if we just hold on a little longer, give a little more, and carry a little extra weight, we will finally be worthy of love, appreciation, and rest. But there is a profound difference between genuine generosity and self-destructive sacrifice. True generosity comes from an abundance of spirit. It is a free, joyful offering that leaves both the giver and the receiver feeling nourished. Self-sacrifice born out of guilt, obligation, or a desire for validation is completely different. It is an unsustainable, unspoken trade. You give away pieces of your sanity, your time, and your health, secretly hoping that the world will notice your sacrifice and give you permission to rest. But that permission rarely comes, because an empty vessel cannot pour anything meaningful into the world. You cannot give water from a dry well, no matter how desperately the people around you need a drink. When you operate from a state of chronic exhaustion, the quality of everything you offer begins to change. The gentle patience you once had starts to wear paper thin. Your creativity vanishes, replaced by a dull survival mode. Your presence, which could be a source of calm and safety for the people you care about, becomes tense, anxious, and strained. Even when you are physically in the room, your mind is somewhere else, constantly calculating how much more energy you have left to give before you completely collapse. The very people you are trying so hard to care for end up receiving an anxious, resentful, and hollow version of you, because there is simply nothing authentic left inside to give. Giving from a place of deep emotional depletion isn't true kindness. It is an unsustainable habit that slowly destroys your inner peace. Every time you push past your natural human limits to meet someone else's expectations, you create a silent rift within yourself. A part of you starts to feel bitter, taken advantage of, and quietly angry at the very people you love. You wonder why nobody is stepping in to save you, why nobody sees how hard you are struggling, and why the world keeps asking for more when you have already given everything you have. But the truth is, no one else can set the boundary for your energy. No one else can protect your well-being for you. Real, grounded presence can only come from a full reservoir. When you prioritize your rest, your mental clarity, your nourishment, and your personal goals, you are not robbing the world of your gifts. You are preserving them. You are ensuring that when you do show up for someone, you show up whole, grounded, and genuinely present. You bring a calm, steady, and warm energy into every interaction, because you are no longer acting from a place of desperate obligation. Putting yourself first isn't an act of taking away from others. It is the fundamental way you guarantee that you have something real, beautiful, and lasting to offer. It is time to unlearn the dangerous belief that your value lies in how much pain you can endure for the sake of others. You do not need to burn yourself down to keep everyone else warm. You do not need to bleed yourself dry to prove that you care. Your life has value simply because you exist, not because of how much burden you can carry without complaining. Give yourself the same deep compassion, the same gentle understanding, and the same unyielding care that you so freely give to everyone else. Step back, refill your cup, and remember that protecting your own peace is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and to the world around you. It is so very easy to feel trapped by the roles you have played for years. Without even realizing it, you pick up a script early in life and start reciting lines that were never truly yours to begin with. You become the mediator who keeps the peace at all costs, the silent partner who never makes waves, the dependable pillar who holds everyone else's emotional world together, or the constant adapter who bends until they break. You play these parts so convincingly for so long that you start to believe this is simply who you are. You look at your exhaustion, your unspoken grief, and your unfulfilled dreams, and you whisper to yourself that this is just your fate, that you were made to carry the heavy weight while everyone else gets to move forward, grow, and be happy. You look at your past and treat it like a lifetime sentence. You tell yourself, I've always been the one who gives up everything. Or, I've always been the person who gets left behind. Or, I am just not someone who gets to put themselves first. But patterns are merely habits of survival. They are not permanence. Just because you had to shrink yourself to feel safe or loved in the past does not mean you have to stay small for the rest of your days. The roles you played were survival strategies for a younger version of you who didn't know any better, who didn't have the power or the boundaries you have today. You do not owe your present or your future to the survival tactics of your past. It is so easy to define our entire lives by the commitments we inherited, the mistakes we made, or the heavy roles imposed upon us by family, society, or old relationships. But true personal evolution begins in the exact moment we realize that we are no longer just passive actors reading a script someone else wrote. We are the ones holding the pen. Carl Jung captured this profound shift in human consciousness when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." When you take a quiet moment to really sit with those words, a deep, breathing space opens up inside your chest. What happened to you matters, and the pain you carried was real, but it does not get to dictate the rest of your story. The expectations people placed on you, the ways you were misunderstood, and the years you spent neglecting your own heart do not define your destination. You are not a static outcome of your past hurts. You are an active, living choice unfolding in this very moment. Rewriting your personal narrative means having the immense courage to look at your daily choices and realize you have the absolute right to change them. It starts with a gentle, conscious shift in how you talk to yourself when nobody else is listening. Instead of telling yourself, "I have to handle this or everything will fall apart," you begin to say, "I am allowed to rest, and the world will keep spinning." Instead of believing, "If I say no, I am a bad person," you remind yourself, "If I say no, I am protecting my peace." You stop viewing your boundaries as a betrayal of others and start seeing them as an act of profound loyalty to your own soul. You do not have to spend the second half of your life paying for the habits of self-abandonment you learned in the first half. Your past patterns of overextending do not obligate you to stay exhausted for the rest of your days. You can decide today, right in this quiet moment, that the chapter of your life where you leave yourself behind is officially closed. You can thank the old version of yourself for doing whatever it took to survive, to protect you, and to get you to this point. And then, with deep love and steady conviction, you can gently turn the page. Imagine what it feels like to write a new story, one where your feelings are treated with gentle care, where your boundaries are honored without hesitation, and where your goals finally get the time, focus, and devotion they deserve. You hold the pen now. Every morning you wake up, every quiet breath you take, and every boundary you set is a brand new sentence. You have the freedom, the right, and the power to choose who you are becoming next. Make sure you write a story where you are loved, where you are valued, and above all, where you come first. Focusing on yourself requires practical, clear, and unshakable boundaries in your everyday routine. For so long, you may have treated your time, your mental space, and your emotional energy like open land with no fences. Anyone could walk in at any moment, drop their heavy baggage, demand your attention, and leave you to clean up the mess. You allowed every call, every notification, every minor crisis, and every last-minute favor to interrupt your day, telling yourself that setting limits was mean, cold, or uncaring. But living without boundaries isn't kindness. It is slow, continuous self-abandonment. Establishing non-negotiable boundaries begins with the quiet realization that your daily life belongs to you first. It looks like reserving the very first hour of your morning for a quiet walk, a hot cup of tea, or a thoughtful journal entry before you open your phone, check your messages, or step into the noise of the world. It looks like creating a sacred space in your day where your mind is allowed to settle without being pulled in 10 different directions at once. It means deciding that your mornings are not a public space for everyone else's needs, but a quiet sanctuary for your own soul to wake up. Non-negotiable boundaries mean changing the way you communicate your limits to the people around you. It looks like looking someone warmly in the eye or sending a calm text that says, "I won't be able to make it this weekend, but thank you so much for thinking of me." And then, and this is the most important part, stopping right there. It means refusing to attach 3 long paragraphs of excuses, over-explanations, or apologies just to justify why you need rest. You do not owe the world a court-style defense for taking care of your own well-being. A quiet, polite no is a complete sentence. So many of us struggle with boundaries because we mistake them for punishment or conflict. We worry that if we draw a line, we are pushing people away, burning bridges, or acting out of malice. But real boundaries are not walls built to keep the world out, nor are they weapons meant to harm or control others. Boundaries are simply clear, loving indicators of where your responsibility ends and someone else's responsibility begins. They are the gentle bridges that allow you to stay connected to others without losing your connection to yourself in the process. When you lack boundaries, you constantly end up carrying emotional weight that was never yours to hold. You take on someone else's bad mood as if it were your fault. You exhaust yourself trying to fix problems they created. And you feel guilty for simply needing a moment to breathe. But when you establish non-negotiable boundaries, you return those heavy burdens to their rightful owners with deep love and respect. You acknowledge that while you can care deeply for someone, you cannot live their life for them. You cannot carry their consequences, and you cannot ruin your own mental peace to save them from theirs. Creating quiet non-negotiables in your day, times when your focus belongs solely to your physical health, your personal learning, your creative outlet, or your total relaxation, establishes an unshakable foundation of self-respect. It sends a powerful, steady signal to your brain and your heart that you are worthy of your own care. When you protect your time with steady conviction, the people around you gradually learn how to treat your energy with respect, too. And even if some people struggle with your new limits, you gain something far more valuable than their temporary approval. You reclaim your freedom, your peace, and your sense of self. When you start shifting your priorities and placing your well-being at the center of your life, not everyone will celebrate the change. In a perfect world, the people around us would clap their hands with joy when we finally learn to protect our peace, set healthy limits, and choose our own healing. But the reality is often much more complex and uncomfortable. People who grew accustomed to your endless availability, your quiet silence, and your constant willingness to put your needs on hold might react with surprise, confusion, or even subtle pressure to push you right back into your old, comfortable habits. They might send a guilt-inducing text, give you a cold shoulder, or make small offhand comments calling you distant, changed, or self-absorbed, simply because you are no longer stepping in to handle things for them. They loved the version of you that had no boundaries, the version that drained itself empty to keep their life smooth and comfortable. When that version disappears, their reaction is rarely about you. It is about the loss of convenience they feel when you finally stand upright in your own worth. This is one of the most pivotal and delicate stages in your entire journey of self-discovery. It is the moment where your commitment to your growth is truly tested. You find yourself standing at a quiet fork in the road, faced with a profound choice. Will you turn back to appease everyone else and keep them temporarily satisfied? Or will you have the courage to walk forward and build a life that feels honest, sustainable, and true to your own heart? Choosing growth over universal approval requires you to make peace with being misunderstood. It means accepting that you cannot control how other people choose to interpret your healing. If someone wants to view your healthy boundary as an act of coldness, you have to let them think that. If someone wants to believe that you changing your life means you no longer care about them. You have to allow them their opinion without rushing in to defend, explain, or exhaust yourself trying to change their mind. Your job is not to manage their emotional reaction to your growth. Your job is to stay steady on your own path. It takes immense emotional strength to sit through those quiet moments of awkwardness, tension, or misunderstanding while the world around you adapts to your new boundaries. You will feel a strong, instinctual pull to surrender, to apologize for things you didn't do wrong, to take back your no, and to fall right back into the familiar pattern of pleasing everyone else just to stop the discomfort. But every time you resist that urge, every time you choose to endure a few moments of awkward tension rather than betraying your own needs, you build a deep, unshakable trust within yourself. You begin to realize that universal approval is a trap designed to keep you small. You were never meant to be liked by everyone, nor were you created to live as a watered-down, agreeable reflection of what other people want you to be. The people who genuinely love you, respect you, and deserve a place in your life will eventually learn to honor your growth. They will adjust to your boundaries because they care about your peace just as much as their own. And as for the rest, their resistance only proves how necessary your boundaries were in the first place. Growth often requires a quiet kind of grief, the grief of letting go of the need to be understood by everyone. But on the other side of that grief lies an incredible sense of freedom. You stop walking through life looking over your shoulder, waiting for permission to exist comfortably in your own skin. You trade the fleeting, fragile comfort of keeping everyone happy for the deep, lasting peace of being true to yourself. You choose your path, you hold your head high, and you keep moving forward. When you consistently choose to focus on yourself, something quiet, subtle, and utterly remarkable begins to happen inside your heart. It doesn't usually arrive with a dramatic flash of light or a sudden, loud revelation. Instead, the transformation unfolds like the early dawn, a slow, gentle clearing of the mist that has obscured your vision for years. One day, you wake up, and without even realizing it at first, you notice that the relentless mental chatter that used to echo in your mind has finally started to quiet down. That persistent, underlying hum of anxiety, the constant worry about who you are pleasing, what you forgot to do, or whether you are enough, begins to soften into a calm, steady stillness. You feel it in your body first. The chronic, tight tension that you carried in your shoulders for as long as you can remember slowly starts to melt away. The heavy knot in your stomach unclenches. Your breath, which used to be shallow and cautious, as if you were constantly bracing for impact, finally reaches deep into your lungs. For the first time in a very long time, you feel fully present inside your own skin. You aren't living 3 steps ahead in someone else's tomorrow. You are right here, anchored firmly in this moment, feeling safe and secure within yourself. As this shift takes root, the way you make decisions undergoes a profound evolution. You stop looking outward for validation, permission, or answers to questions that only your heart can answer. You no longer draft your life choices based on external pressure, societal expectations, or the fear of disappointing others. Instead, you begin to make decisions from a place of deep internal clarity and self-respect. When an opportunity, a request, or a relationship enters your space, you pause and ask yourself a simple yet life-changing question. Does this bring me closer to my peace, or does it pull me away from it? Your intuition, which was once drowned out by the loud demands of the world, becomes a clear, unwavering compass that guides your steps with quiet confidence. The goals, dreams, and passions you set aside years ago, the ones you quietly buried under the mountain of everyone else's needs, begin to breathe again. You finally have the time, energy, and mental space to dedicate to the things that make your soul feel alive. Whether it is writing, creating, learning, moving your body, or simply sitting in peaceful solitude, your personal growth receives the devotion it always deserved. You realize that your dreams were never dead. They were simply waiting patiently for you to clear away the clutter of self-abandonment and return to them. This is the true essence of returning to yourself. It is the realization that your life was never meant to be lived from the outside in, constantly reacting, adjusting, and changing your shape to fit a world that always demands more from you. Your life is meant to be lived from the inside out. It is meant to be an authentic expression of your values, your boundaries, your joy, and your truth. When you stand firmly in your own center, you become deeply resilient. The sudden storms of life, the opinions of strangers, and the changing moods of those around you no longer have the power to knock you off your feet. You are grounded in a deep, unshakable knowing of who you are. You begin to treat yourself with the same tender, unconditional love that you spent years pouring into everyone else. You give yourself grace when you make a mistake, patience when you feel tired, and gentle encouragement when you face a new challenge. You stop talking to yourself like a harsh critic and start speaking to yourself like a beloved friend. The relationship you have with yourself becomes the safest, most comforting place in your entire universe. Everything changes when you realize that choosing yourself isn't a one-time event or a temporary phase you go through until things settle down. Choosing yourself is a daily practice, a continuous commitment, and a sacred promise that you make to your own heart every single morning. It is picking yourself up when you stumble, protecting your boundaries when they are tested, and honoring your needs even when it feels uncomfortable. Remember that taking up space in your own life is not something you ever have to apologize for. You do not need to earn your right to rest, to heal, or to be happy. Keep taking your space without fear. Keep protecting your time with quiet strength. And above all, trust that when you place yourself at the center of your own life, everything else around you naturally falls into its right place. You have finally come home to yourself, and everything changes after this. As we reach the end of this journey together, take a slow, deep breath and let the quiet sink in. Look back at the ground you have covered today. You have looked gently at the ways you used to leave yourself behind, the heavy cost of constant availability, and the armor of over-functioning. You have faced the unfamiliar quiet inside, reclaimed your energy from approval-seeking, and dismantled the old belief that total self-sacrifice is the only way to prove your worth. You have started rewriting your narrative, setting firm, non-negotiable boundaries, and choosing your own growth, even when it feels uncomfortable. Most importantly, you have begun the sacred process of returning to yourself. None of this requires you to fix your entire life overnight. Healing and self-discovery are not racetracks with a finish line where you suddenly become a perfect, untouched version of yourself. It is simply a daily practice of returning home to your own heart. It is choosing again and again in tiny, everyday moments to place your peace on equal footing with everyone else's. It is pausing before you say yes to a request that drains you, taking 10 quiet minutes in the morning just for yourself, or standing firm in a gentle boundary without offering a lengthy defense. The shift has already begun inside you. You can feel it in the way you breathe a little deeper, in the quiet clarity that replaces your mental chatter, and in the steady realization that your worth was never meant to be earned through exhaustion. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to rest before you reach a breaking point. You belong to your own life first. Before you step back into the noise and demands of the world outside, take this moment to lock in the commitment you are making to yourself. Let this be your line in the sand, a soft, unwavering promise that you will no longer be a secondary character in your own story. Leave a final affirmation in the comments below. I am home within myself, and I come first. Type those words out slowly. Let each letter carry the weight of your intention. Let the comment section become a shared sanctuary of thousands of people, all choosing to stop abandoning themselves on the exact same day. Thank you for bringing your open heart to this space today.